Well, it wasn't to be for the Bears in the first ever professional game of rugby league to be played in the home of Rugby Union, as a clinical Hunslet side came away with a 48-20 victory. We've got all the analysis and reaction from it. This is the world's greatest podcast about the Coventry Bears. This is Bear Necessities. Yes, welcome to Bear Necessities, your favourite podcast about the Coventry Bears. We live at covbearspodcast.com. We're at covbearspodcast on Twitter. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and we're sponsored by York's Tim. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always is my fellow host, Craig Cathcart. Craig, how you doing?
Yes, good, mate. Disappointed we didn't get the win today, but I'm actually fairly upbeat overall with the performance, and it's been a good day actually at rugby today. Good attendance and a real good atmosphere around the ground as well.
Definitely, and we'll get into that in a moment. We'll bring you analysis of the game, post-match thoughts of head coach Tom Tsang. We also got a very quick interview with Chris Barratt because he marked his 100th appearance for the club today, and we'll just get a bit of a sense of what we think about this temporary move to rugby. But first, obviously, you've got to plug the book. 1 week left for you to get your pre-orders in for the book that I've written about last season, which of course was the Bears' 20th anniversary season. And don't forget, all profits from the book are being split between the Bears and Rugby League Cares. So you'll be helping the development of your club and you'll be helping a terrific charity. So if you've not got your order in already, don't leave it too much longer. Only a week left. covbearspodcast.com/book. Craig's got his order in because he's a very, very diligent co-host. And hopefully he's looking forward to reading it, and he's not just bought it because I've written it and he kind of has to.
No, I'm fully expecting it to be a good read. I had a sneak peek, I think, at one of the chapters you gave me a while ago, and it's definitely going to be a really good read.
Good, excellent. So get your orders in now and help raise a very good cause and help me feel good about myself. So let's get into the story of the game. So obviously it didn't go the Bears' way ultimately. Hunslet winning 48-20. A quick sort of run through how it all panned out. Bears started really well. Were first to score with a try through Lewis Taylor. He just hit the ball at speed and really finished well. Elliot Hall on kicking duty today, he nailed the conversion, and then he added a penalty not long after that to put the Bears 8-0 up. Then Hunslet sort of showed the signs of what they were able to do. They scored 3 tries fairly quickly to take a 16-8 lead. Well, the Bears did hit back to make it 16-14 with an excellent try from Rhys Rance. But unfortunately, Hunslet scored right before half-time to make it 22-14 and just edge that couple of scores ahead. Bears came out for second half with a bit more fire in their belly, and that man, Elliot Hall, scored again to make it 14 tries in 14 games. A really terrific try. Nathan Conroy pouncing on a Hunslet knock-on, making the break and then passing it on to Elliot Hall, who sprinted in from halfway. And the conversion from that took it to 20-22, and we were all getting very excited, and we were thinking that this first game in rugby could be a victory for the home side. But unfortunately, again for the Bears, Hunslet went on another scoring spree, scored 3 tries in quick succession and then another 2 before the final whistle, meaning 9 tries in total, and that final score of 48-20. Which probably sounds a lot worse than it actually was in terms of performance for the Bears and defensive organisation and all that stuff for the Bears. We will get into that ever so shortly, but first let's hear the post-match thoughts of Bears head coach Tom Tsang. Tom, so obviously first game of rugby league here at the Rugby Football Club. Not the result you would have wanted. Bit of a tough second half, really. You got to within 2 points and then it all seemed to go wrong, really. How did you see it?
Yeah, I thought we came out of the blocks really, really well. I thought the energy that we had that first opening 15-20 minutes was as good as we've had all season, and just showed we put Hunslet under a load of pressure, took him into touch a couple of times, forced some errors from him, and finished a couple of nice tries there early doors. And that sort of shows like what we're doing. The structures that we have can take teams apart, but a few defensive lapses, and we've got 3 guys on debut today. in pretty key positions, and I thought although they played well, it just, that sort of communication that becomes second nature, and those combinations that become second nature just broke down a few times, more so in defence than attack, which is probably what you'd expect. And Hunslet were good enough to recognise those areas, and were just ruthless with getting to those areas. And second half, obviously, we got ourselves back into it, 22-20, and I thought at that point we can potentially kick on and go again and maybe take a win. But after we scored, we knock on the next set, and I don't think we touched the ball for 15 minutes because it was error, couple of penalties, couple of errors, with some tries of theirs in between. I think every time we knocked on, they punished us. That's a sign of how good they are as a team. So we didn't really give ourselves the opportunity in the second half to go on with it. But I've got to be pretty proud of the way that they sort of stuck to it as best they could do, considering, well, the people who've been listening to me speak know how many injuries we've got. I've already mentioned the guys on debut in key positions. So overall, it's disappointing to lose and with that scoreline, but I was fairly happy with the sort of generally the performance we put out.
And that ruthless streak that you mentioned Hunslet having, do you think that's potentially something that is lacking in your guys, and that is part of the territory with having such a young team, perhaps? Young team,
but more than anything, Hunslet have just got a settled lineup. They've got a squad of about 24 lads with 2 or 3 guys that are sort of on loan dual reg, but there's the same group of guys that turn up week in, week out for them, and they've just got the benefit of that consistency. They know that if something doesn't quite go to their way, that they can trust the bloke next to them, because they know after 3 quarters of the season, if not more, because they'll played with each other in previous years, that they know what system to fall back into. Whereas when you bring in new guys into the team, don't matter how good they are, there's always going to be the opportunity for disjointedness and for the ball to be dropped and things like that. So it's a combination of things, but it's something that we know that when we click, we're very, very good, and for us it's about consistency. It always is, and it's something that we're constantly trying to find.
Well, I wanted to ask, one thing that did really stand out today was the attack, and particularly Reece Rance's try. It was like a knife through butter, really. And like you say, when you click and when you get the attack right, you can trouble anyone. So I guess you can take confidence from that for the rest of the season in terms of how effective you are when going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we scored 2 or 3 tries against pretty much every team in the league, if not more. So we know that what we're doing with the ball is effective. What we need to start doing more is giving ourselves those opportunities more often than not by backing that up with our defensive process. And again, we weren't bad defensively across 80 minutes. There were lapses across the game, and when the scoreboard just ticks over slowly through a game, at the end of the 80 minutes you look at the score and it seems like it's been a bit of a flogging, but it wasn't really. We were in that game for the most of it, apart from just that 10-15 minute period in the second half where they scored a few. But it's mixed feelings, as it always is, because I see so much positiveness in the way that the lads took to the task. They don't sort of worry about who's in and out of the team, the injuries they've got. They just turn up and they do their best, and I can't sort of knock them for that. It's just a case of, like I said, trying to us as a club and as a coach staff, trying to give them a consistent team so they can actually build something.
So you mentioned 3 players on debut. Could you just chat briefly about each of those, just give listeners a bit more of an understanding about who they are?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Kobe Green in the halves. He's a young Welsh lad who's actually good friends and has been mentored by Paul Emanuele through his development as a junior, and Paul put him on our radar. He's just been away with the Welsh students in the Four Nations. He's on contract with Bradford Bulls and is one of their up and coming prospects. He's probably sort of 3rd choice in their first team for the half. So very good young player. Obviously coming into a team in a real key position, it's going to be difficult for him, but I think he acquitted himself pretty well. Some really nice touches, and he'll only get better for us over the month that he's with us. And then we've got Harvey Whiteley, who's in from Dewsbury, who's from Leeds originally. He was the captain of their academy team for 2 years, so he's got a very good pedigree. I think his size probably holds him back in terms of being a regular for Dewsbury, and only being sort of 20. but he's a very, very skillful, technically very good hooker, very sharp out of dummy half, great delivery, good distribution. So we're in a good position to be able to bring him into the team. And then the other player who's on debut is Sam Scott, who's been around Championship more so than League One for probably best part of 8 years. He's a very experienced player from York on dual registration. We had to draft him in because of the injuries we've got. So again, lucky to have that to call on. And I thought, generally speaking, he was very good for us as well.
So just 2 more questions before I let you go. First of all, looking ahead to next week, trip to West Wales. Obviously the kind of game that supporters would probably be targeting for a win, and I assume you guys will as well. What are your thoughts going into that one?
Sort of similar to what I've already said, really. We need to make sure that we're consistent with our process. Defensively, we need to make sure that we're not just slipping down to sort of some of those individual errors, which I think was what caught us out today. We need to make sure that we're defending cohesively as a team, and if we turn up defensively, then that should stand us in good stead to be able to give us the opportunities to score enough tries and points to win. And
last but not least, I can't not mention Chris Barratt. Today he made his 100th appearance for the Bears. I mean, just some words on him. He's your captain. He's obviously a club legend and a real leader on the pitch. But to make 100 appearances for the Bears is quite an achievement, isn't it?
Yeah. The first thing to say about Chris is he's so easy to work with. He's very, very hard working. His attitude's fantastic. He leads from the front in terms of the way he plays the game, but also he's just sort of that sort of quiet confidence when he's in the team that he's going to be turning up and making the tackles that he has to make and making the carries that he has to make. And over the years, probably eight years that I've been working with him, he's developed into a genuine friend of mine. So very happy that he's managed to get to that mark and hopefully can make it 200 before he's done.
Great stuff. Well, Tom, best of luck for next week and speak to you soon.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
So huge thanks to Tom, as always, for joining us and for giving us his thoughts on the game. So, Craig, you mentioned at the start of the show, you're actually fairly upbeat about the performance, and the scoreline looks one way. It's very one-sided, but we have to take into account, as Tom said, Hunslet are a very good team, a very clinical team. Yeah. They're in with a chance of promotion this year. That they're not to be messed with, and then they don't waste any opportunities. And the Bears had 3 players on debut in key positions, so you kind of would expect a slightly less organised defence and perhaps an attack that doesn't click quite so much. The Bears have still got a lot of injuries as well, but there were plenty of positives today, weren't there?
Yeah, I think, injuries have really mounted up in the last few weeks. You could probably tell at times that there was some new players in key positions. I guess there was at times a little bit of hesitancy, both in attack and defence. But actually the players that came in played very, very well today, I think, on the whole. I think give them another couple of games and you'll start to see some real good performances there. I think on the whole, Hunslet are a big team. They run at pace. They make good yards when they've got the ball. The Bears actually defended quite well for large parts of the game. They really matched them physically. They were putting them on their back in defence. The disappointing thing was that the hard work sometimes didn't pay off because of missed tackles, and again that was down to hesitation a couple of times. But actually, the Bears were right in the game for large proportions of it. I mean, on 50 minutes, it really looked like the game was there for the Bears to take. I think the issue with Hunslet is that their experience really paid off. They scored at key times. Just before half-time, the Bears were down the Hunslet end. Really looked like the line was literally begging, and the ref pulled it back for crossing, and the Bears were about to touch down. They would have gone into the lead probably at half-time. Hunslet saw the opportunity, went up the other end and scored. And then just after half-time, Bears came out firing. Again, had a really good 10-minute spell at the start of the second half. Pulled the score back to 20-22. It really did look at that point like the Bears might conceivably come back into the game, but Hunslet, again, their experience, they scored when they really need to step up they do it, and when they were close to the Bears line, they didn't make any mistakes. Throughout the game, they completed their sets quite well. They had a couple of knock-ons, but generally they completed most of their sets. And when the Bears had the ball, they pinned them down quite well in the second half. The Bears actually scored quite a good number of points off the chances that they had.
Yeah. I mean, it was really that 10 minutes after the Bears got it back to within 2 points where they slightly slacked a little bit defensively, or were slightly missing defensively. Hunslet scored those 3 and then a couple more tries before the end, and effectively that 5 or 10 minutes of slightly less than perfect concentration of the game was gone, wasn't it? And that's the difference between the two sides at this sort of level. Hunslet are so clinical and such a big physical side that once they get their tails up, they're very difficult to sort of wrestle anything from them.
They really used momentum well. When they scored, they really looked like scoring off the next set, because once they score, they're really, really up for it. Off the kickoffs, they were straight up trying to score again, and they used momentum. They scored in phases, really. It wasn't like a procession of tries throughout the game. They scored in bursts, where they scored 2 or 3 tries at a time. And, a lot of their players actually, I felt that they were a very good team. A couple of their players were really exceptional players. But saying that, there was a lot of very, very, very good performances from the Bears. I thought Kieran Sherratt was excellent today. Baz came off the bench. He's not actually 100% fully fit, but again, he was excellent, as he always is. Elliot Hall played well. The halfback pairing who played well, Nathan and
Kobe,
played very well. I think Kobe, if he gets a couple more games, will start to look the real deal.
And of course, we should mention Joe Sanderson wasn't eligible to play today because he's on loan from Hunslet, so that's one of the reasons why Kobe was drafted in. But got Kobe on a month's loan. Joe Sanderson will be available again next week, so that potentially makes it a slightly more interesting lineup for the Bears if they want it, because you'd think that perhaps Nathan Conroy might move back to hooker, which is his natural position. 2 young halfbacks pulling the strings either side. That's the kind of thing we want to see, isn't it? And the way the backs performed today, the way they were so, they, as you said earlier, they didn't get much ball near the Hunslet line, but when they did, they scored from most of those opportunities. They can cause any team in this league problems when they click, can't they?
Absolutely. I mean, I think what I would say is the fluidity wasn't there completely, but at times players really stepped up to the mark. Jacob Jones was playing in centre again. I mean, he normally plays second row, and I guess you probably lose a little bit of what he offers when he plays in centre, but he was excellent. I mean, the break that he made to set up Rhys Rance's try was just fantastic. He offloaded well at times. He had a really good performance. I think today overall, the backs really did play well. Hayden Freeman again playing out of position in the centre, and he played well. But I think what I would say though is the pack today deserve a lot of credit. Hunslet are the type of team that will steamroller you through the middle, and the lads really competed with them for large parts of the game. The front row for the Bears were excellent. Second rows were excellent. Harry Kaufman was playing at loose forward today. I thought he was fantastic actually. First 10 minutes of the game he was phenomenal, and he took it up to the line full speed every single time. He's really come on as a player. It's just one of those things. I think, as I said, I am upbeat about the performance. Hunslet were just a better team on the day. I think when they're in the mood, they're a very, very good team. And actually, over both, I've seen the Bears play away at Hunslet. I've seen them play here today, and Hunslet are one of the better teams in the league without a doubt. They'll be looking to push, have a late surge for promotion. I think possibly there's 1 or 2 teams better than them in the league, but certainly they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the league this year.
So some positives on the pitch, and let's talk briefly around, I guess, about the pitch and the ground around it. It's the Bears' first game at rugby. really nice little club, nice atmosphere, good crowd today as well. It's if people listening perhaps decided not to come to this game against Hunslet, they should definitely come to the remaining 3, shouldn't they? Because it's a really cracking little atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a great ground. I mean, the attendance today was 420, which is one of the biggest attendances this year. Hunslet did bring quite a big travelling support with them, but there was a lot of faces here today and a lot of new faces as well watching the game. It's a fantastic ground to watch the match. I mean, we were right next to the touchline, weren't we? And you could literally hear and see every tackle up close, and it was fantastic. I mean, the staff here today have been absolutely phenomenal, and everyone's been made feel really, really welcome.
And an easy journey from Coventry as well. Yeah. For anyone listening who perhaps was a bit concerned, honestly, a very easy journey if you're able to drive or get a lift, and pretty doable on the train as well. So really do come down for the remaining games, because it's been an excellent day.
The clubhouse is fantastic. There's lots of seating outside the clubhouse to watch the game, and then there's the stand opposite, which actually was fairly full today. It was really good. I've really enjoyed it. I'm really impressed with the facilities and really impressed with how things have gone today. It's a game the Bears have had to play in a different ground, and today I thought it actually felt like home. I'm quite positive about there's 3 home games left. I think the Bears players and fans are going to feel very welcome here.
Definitely. Right, one more bit of business from this weekend's game to deal with, and that, of course, is the fact that Chris Barratt, by making it onto the pitch off the bench and putting in his usual excellent stint, he made it 100 appearances for the Bears, and there was a special presentation to him after the game, a signed, framed Bears shirt, and after he received that presentation, I very quickly caught up with him for a very brief chat. Chris, not the result you wanted for your 100th appearance, but an incredible achievement for you. How proud are you to make it to 100 appearances for the Bears?
Yeah, it's been good. I thought I was going to make it last year, but getting injured, it put me back a bit, but it's finally good to get over the milestone.
Have you got any particular proud standout memories from those 100 games?
Some of the good wins we had last year. Obviously going like trips like Toulouse, Toronto, it's been a good experience with her.
And how are you in terms of holding up for the rest of the season? I know you've been starting off the bench last couple of games. Are you on your way back to fitness, do you think?
Yeah. I've just been carrying a knock on my groin, so I've been trying to limit the minutes I've been playing, but I should be fine.
And what do you reckon in terms of towards the next 100? Where do you see yourself going from here?
I'm just going to keep going till my body stops or starts hurting too much.
Well, thank you so much for your serving for the club, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Cheers, thank you.
So huge thanks to Chris Barratt, and congratulations on making the 100 appearances. I mean, Craig, we talked so much about Chris Barratt over the course of this podcast. The interview with him was very short. He's a man of very few words. Yeah. He does his speaking on the pitch, and it's easy to roll out these cliches when you get a player who has been such a stalwart for a club and to reach 100 appearances, but he truly is a leader in this Bears team, and he is a club legend, isn't he?
Yeah, he leads by example. He's, every week, he doesn't win Man of the Match awards very often. He doesn't get accolades that other players get, but he is, without a doubt, simply probably the best player the Bears have got. He is fantastic, always gives 100%, always gives 10 out of 10 performances. And actually, you could see today, as I say, he wasn't 100% fit. When he came on the field, it made a big difference, particularly the first sort of 20 minutes that he was on the pitch. He's just a fantastic player. He's our captain. As I said, everyone follows him. Everyone looks to him to lead by example, and he never lets the side down. He's just a phenomenal player. I think there is just one thing to say. I think there has been some debate whether or not it was this game or the Scholars game last week that he made his 100, but either way, he's definitely made 100 appearances, and he fully deserves the accolades that he got today. The fans were crowded round, and everyone really wished him well, because there's a lot of love from Bears fans for Chris Barratt. He's just a phenomenal player.
So whether it's game 101 or 102 for Chris Barratt next week, there is a game for him next week. It's a trip to West Wales. It's the kind of game that even trying to take our Bears bias out of it, we would probably expect a Bears victory from, wouldn't we? West Wales have improved this year, but so have the Bears, and even with injuries and even with new players, you'd like to think that should be one that the Bears will be targeting to win. What do you reckon looking ahead to next week? It'd be really nice to round off the month with a victory and make it 2 from 3, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think as you said, West Wales have definitely got better. They were much improved when they played the Bears first game of the season this year. But actually it was a fairly comfortable victory for the Bears in the end. I think we have got too much for them. I don't want to be overconfident because, again, to use a cliche, it's a potential banana skin. I think they'll be massively up for it because they'll see it as an opportunity of getting a win. They'll be at home. They'll probably, over the last few weeks, they'll have trained to target the Bears as a potential win. So it won't be an easy game. They do have some good players there. They've had a lot of results that haven't gone their way, but this is one certainly that the Bears will be looking to win and should win. I think the lads will be up for it, definitely. You could see if the Bears have an off day, then it gets it might get quite scary a bit. The players might get a bit apprehensive, a bit worried, but they'll certainly be looking to get that win on the board next week, and I think it'll set up the end of the season quite nicely if they do.
Well, I remember the trip down there last year, actually. Bears started well, and then West Wales got a bit of a foothold, and it was level at half time, and it was tight for the majority of the game, and then the Bears sort of experience and know-how showed through in the end, and they pulled away and got the win. But yeah, I'm pretty confident of a Bears victory, and I'd like to think that we've seen so much good attacking play from the Bears this year. I think if they can hit the ground running and make that ball stick in their passes and try out a few shapes and a few moves, I think fairly confident of an away victory next week. But we will be back to bring you all the news from that and the reaction. But I guess that just leaves us to round off. We're currently sat behind a reversing coach. It's coming right towards us. So if this recording cuts out, then you know what's happened. Oh no, he's turning. It's fine. We're okay. So that's what the noise is in the background, listeners. Don't forget. Get your order in for the book. There's only 1 week left for you to do that. covbearspodcast.com/book. Sorry, slightly distracted by this coach driving very close to the different cars in the car park. I appreciate this is terrible podcast listening because you can't see this. But it is somewhat distracting. What was I saying? Yes, order the book. covbearspodcast.com is where we live. Covbears Podcast on Twitter. Tell people about the show. We're sponsored by York's Tim, for which we are very, very grateful. And of course, we will be back next week, bring you all the news and reaction from the trip to West Wales. And then we've got a week off, and then down to the last 2 months of the season, Craig. It's flying by, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone really, really quickly. I think there's been some really big highs this year, and I'm looking forward to the Bears finishing the season strong.
Likewise. Well, thanks always for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week.